the financial crimes from the aggravated murder, which is a first-degree felony, also attempted aggravated murder, insurance fraud, and forgery. The trial is scheduled for February 23rd to March 26th of 2026 in Summit County, with jury selection beginning on February 10th. The defense appealed for change of venue, but those appeals were denied. So Corey Richins remains held without bail in Summit County Jail. In the separate case of her financial crimes, in June of 2025, charges were filed for 26 felonies, including mortgage fraud, forgery, money laundering, communications fraud, issuing bad checks, and a pattern of unlawful activity dating back to 2021. Also in October, a key witness for the case, Robert Crozier, who allegedly supplied fentanyl to Corey Richins' housekeeper, recanted in an affidavit claiming that he sold OxyContin, case which I hope to completely leave behind me in 2025. I cannot believe people are still talking about this, but I want to give an update about the Lauren Matthias stalking injunction case. I am first going to report factually on the case, and then I will give some personal commentary because comments about me have become increasingly personal online. So Lauren Matthias is a former television journalist and co-host of the popular Hidden True Crime podcast and YouTube channel, which she runs with her husband, Dr. John Matthias, who is a forensic psychologist. The channel launched in 2020 and gained prominence for their in-depth coverage of the Lori Vallow Daybell murders, blending reporting with psychological analysis. Hidden True Crime currently has 313,000 YouTube subscribers and strong podcast rankings. In 2025, Lauren became embroiled in a highly publicized civil stalking injunction dispute involving allegations of harassment from a former contractor and former friends. Now, in 2020, when Hidden True Crime started podcasting from their kitchen table, talking about the Daybell case, their initial relationships with family members and victims were positive. Kay Woodcock publicly praised Hidden True Crime for factual reporting, and other family members participated in lives and chats. However, by mid-2025, a fallout occurred, escalating publicly in October amid Matthias's separate stalking injunction dispute, completely unrelated directly to the Vallow case, but providing context for the timing. I'll have more on this after I address the stalking case. Matthias alleged prolonged online and offline stalking, harassment, and bullying by Christina MacArthur, a Utah-based true crime TikToker, claiming it impacted her family, mental health, and safety. She described an initial friendship that escalated into threats and obsessive behavior, with Christina creating an entire TikTok channel dedicated to harassing and defaming Lauren Matthias. On October 15th, 2025, Matthias obtained a temporary restraining order against MacArthur requiring a 500-foot no-contact distance. Body cam footage of the service showed that MacArthur was aware of the injunction, and police advised her that despite her having tickets to CrimeCon for months, she was not to attend the convention and she was to stay 500 feet away from Matthias. A full hearing was scheduled, during which Matthias requested it be closed to the public and media for privacy. But the judge ruled that the hearing must be public per Utah law, as stalking injunctions are not exempt from open court rules. Then the Law and Crime Network planned to stream the hearing, prompting backlash from Matthias's attorneys. Shortly after, Matthias voluntarily dropped and withdrew the petition, citing concerns for her child's privacy and well-being amid potential public exposure by Law and Crime. On October 15th, Matthias went live on YouTube for a 9+ hour live stream detailing her side, presenting evidence such as screenshots and messages, and expressing fear. Initially, the live garnered significant views, but it divided the true crime community. Supporters praised her transparency and highlighted creator safety issues, and critics accused her of one-sided storytelling, potential defamation by naming MacArthur indirectly, and misusing legal processes for her own personal means. Counter allegations emerged, including a Change.org petition from December of this year, calling for an investigation into whether Matthias filed a, quote, false police report, but that petition was withdrawn after media scrutiny. Multiple discussions have emerged on Reddit threads and YouTube channels focused on ethics in the true crime community, with some viewing this as mutual online drama. Now, even though the judge ruled that the injunction was to be kept in place with modifications after the initial hearing, the case is now closed since Mathias withdrew and ultimately no permanent order was issued. Hidden True Crime continues active production with recent episodes covering cases like the Rob and Michelle Reiner murders and others. Now, completely separate from the stalking case, we have interactions between Lauren Mathias and family members and victims involved in the Lori Vallow Daybell case, Kay Woodcock and Cresha Easton. There have been vague references to Lauren Mathias referring to Kay and Larry in disparaging terms, but I have not seen any receipts of that actually happening. There are allegations that Lauren called Cresha Easton, quote, despicable and, quote, unable to comprehend things. And there are allegations that Lauren criticized other individuals connected to the case. Cresha Easton, who is Kay Woodcock's daughter, responded with a video along the lines of my experience with Hidden True Crime, the voice Lauren does not want you to hear, detailing her side and showing additional context. Now, I want to also point out that initially, Cresha seemed supportive of Lauren's live, going into the chat and having kind comments for her, but apparently changed her tune after other people started to push back on it. Kay Woodcock appeared in this video, and she stated that she distanced herself from Mathias months earlier after learning of derogatory comments about a family member, calling someone stupid. She kept it private initially, and she continued to refer to Lauren positively in general terms until Cresha reminded her during the live that Kay had referred to feeling, quote, exploited by Hidden True Crime. I want to pause here because I wonder if any of the family members in this case also felt exploited by Justin Lum or Nate Eaton or Court TV or 2020 or Dateline or Law and Crime or Nancy Grace or any of the other hundreds of channels that covered and profited from covering their family's case. Kay went on to say that she was particularly upset after Mathias compared her personal harassment situation to the murders of her brother Charles Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and even unrelated victim Charlie Kirk, finding it deeply offensive to equate online criticism with actual ignored pleas that led to deaths. I want to point out here that I personally didn't think Lauren was directly comparing herself to murder victims, but referring generally to trying to get help and not being heard or understood. But victims and family members are allowed to feel differently than those of us on the outside rings. During Cresha and Kay's discussion, Cresha played a video in the background that was created by Hidden True Crime. She played it without commentary on the particular video and was not presenting it for educational purposes, so the use of the video did not fall under YouTube's fair use guidelines. As a result, Hidden True Crime producer Grayson issued a copyright strike against Cresha's channel, as it is the producer's job to protect the intellectual property of the channel. Copyright strikes can easily be resolved by the channel owner. If the creator attends copyright school, YouTube will reinstate the stricken video after 90 days. Once a creator requests a copyright strike, the outcome is in YouTube's hands. At no time was Cresha served with a lawsuit by Hidden True Crime. She is not now, nor ever was, being sued by Hidden True Crime. And while some people would say that it is in poor taste to issue a copyright strike against a victim, intellectual property has its rights as well. The controversy peaked in October and early November, dividing the true crime community on all kinds of online platforms, and some creators have released leaked text messages featuring conversations which they claim are damning against Lauren Mathias. Supporters of Mathias view the releases as part of a broader harassment against her, while critics argue it highlights ethical issues in Lauren Mathias's content creation. No mainstream news outlets have covered the specific texts in detail. And here's where I'm going to pause reporting on just the facts of the case to offer some personal commentary. There's a reason that no mainstream news outlets have picked this story up. And one of the reasons is proper sourcing. You won't see a mainstream news channel publishing partial conversations without context and proper vetting. So, as a community, I think we need to ask better questions. There are too many people taking what they hear on YouTube channels as absolute truth without questioning where the information comes from. So here are some of the questions that I continue to have in this case. And if you know the answers, please feel free to email me at askmegan@gmail.com. First of all, why are there people supporting and applauding someone who violated a legitimate court order? Even if you believe the stalking injunction was unjust, violating the order isn't how you solve that. There are legal remedies you can pursue without breaking the law. And yes, I've seen the body cam footage where the police officer approaches Christina in the bar and tells her that as the enjoined party, she has to leave. So my next question is, if Christina really was afraid for her safety, why didn't she also get a stalking injunction? Since people are alleging they're so easy to get and judges just hand them out like candy, if she was really afraid for her safety, she should have gotten her own injunction. And yes, we've seen the body cam footage. Police told Christina she had to, 1, stay 500 feet away from Lauren Matthias, and 2, leave the bar the first night of CrimeCon, even if she was there first. So why did she show up in the bar the second night as well and again refuse to leave? Now, for my own reference, a football field is 300 feet long, not including the end zones. And remembering the layout of that bar situation, there's pretty much nowhere they could have been in the same bar together that would have been 500 feet apart. My next question is, why are there people shaming Lauren Matthias for doing a 9-hour live stream, but those same people are still out here doing 3, 4, and 5-hour lives about it after months? The number of hours they've spent on this content is way more than 9 hours. And about that night in the bar, is there a problem with a friend buying another friend surrounded by a group of friends a shot of tequila after a hard day? Because people are making it sound like Joe Schmo is a creepy older guy trying to take advantage of a young girl in a bad situation, and it's gross. I was there, and that's not how it went down, no matter how badly people want to twist it into something weird. A related question is, why do people have a problem with me or Joe Schmo or anyone collecting evidence that a legitimate court order is being violated? Individual documentation is often the only thing law enforcement has to go on. So if someone was in violation of an order against you, would you take pictures, videos, recordings to show to law enforcement later? I would like to think we would all do that because documenting harassment is very important. As to the supposedly damning texts, yes, I've seen them. My question is, have the people sharing those screenshots revealed themselves? Who are they, and what do they have to gain or lose by sharing them? Are they being transparent about how they obtained these text messages, including disclosing what their relationship to Lauren is or was? If they're not, we should be asking these questions instead of just taking it at face value as something legitimate. Some of the texts come from group chats or public forums where there's no expectation of privacy, but some are private texts between Lauren and other individuals, not the people sharing the text. So how did they get those? And given the capabilities of artificial intelligence, how do we know these are not fake or manufactured or manipulated? And again, what's the context? Why are the people sharing these not also showing the conversation that comes before and after the so-called damning texts? For example, the screenshots Kresha showed of texts I sent her after she claimed I was drugged at CrimeCon, that I was different since CrimeCon, and that I was being manipulated by Lauren, failed to reveal that Kresha and I exchanged friendly texts in October after CrimeCon, with no hint of concern from her about my mental health. And she also failed to disclose what our relationship was like prior to her speaking out against Lauren, with me offering unwavering support of her and her channel, checking up on her when I hadn't heard from her, and spending hours on the phone with each of us sharing struggles and concerns throughout the Daybell case. Given our history, my question is, why didn't she just pick up the phone and call me if she was actually concerned that, quote, Lauren had gotten to me? I have the same question about other friends and former supporters of Lauren. Why were people more inclined to be swayed by commentary from YouTubers who have never met Lauren rather than relying on their personal experiences with her? The texts that I've seen that refer to me directly, I've had personal conversations with Lauren about because I believe that to be the best way to handle things, going directly to the source and talking to someone. And that's what I was attempting to do with Kresha, but she chose to ignore my messages and turn to ChatGPT instead. Have you ever heard of tall poppy syndrome? It's a cultural phenomenon where individuals who achieve notable success, talent, or status are resented, criticized, attacked, or cut down by others, often to bring them back to a perceived level of equality with their peers. The term originates from Australia and New Zealand in the 1980s, drawing from ancient metaphors like cutting down the tallest poppies in a field to make everything uniform, symbolizing envy or anti-elitism in egalitarian societies. It can manifest through mockery, exclusion, or sabotage, and is often linked to social pressures that discourage standing out. Over the last year, Hidden True Crime has gained over 81,000 subscribers and over 28 million views, with nearly 6 million of those views in April alone during the Lori Vallow Daybell, Arizona trial, right around the time the bullying and stalking behavior escalated. And although they initially lost subs over this controversy, their channel stats are now back to normal and they're growing again in both watch hours and subs. Throughout this entire saga, two things keep coming to my mind over and over. One is the song Hey Jealousy, and the other is the movie Mary Poppins. A few years ago, somebody cut together a trailer for Mary Poppins that it made it look like a horror movie instead of a Disney film. And I can't help but see that the same thing is happening here. You can cut together this instance to make it say whatever you want. Either you can vilify Lauren and she is a pariah and a horrible person, or you can see her as an individual who's being harassed and maligned. The difference is, how do you want to see it? Is it okay for an online creator to have personal flaws? Is it okay for them to vent their personal frustrations and talk disparagingly about people ever? Is it ever okay to make a mistake when you're in the public eye? Are we going to not ever forgive people for anything that they do or say? Personally, I think if there's an issue between Kay and Lauren, that should be worked out between the two of them. And as far as the stalking case goes, that's for the courts to decide. Here's my final question. Who are the seven gatherers, and why in the world would they name themselves after a murderous cult, even as a joke? And what do they have to gain if Lauren's channel goes away? Because when we answer that question honestly, this situation looks a lot less like a podcaster being exposed for bad behavior and a lot more like a group of jealous women engaging in a civil conspiracy. Civil conspiracy is to use online spaces and technology to inflict or contribute to severe mental suffering, most notably through intimidation, harassment, surveillance, public shaming, and defamation, as well as appropriation, deletion, or manipulation of information. Now, I will briefly address the text between Lauren Matthias and my cousin, Summer Shiflett, because I've seen these before, where Summer makes some frankly wild and unhinged accusations, some of which literally made me laugh out loud. Sneaking into rehab? Right. Responsible journalism demands that an individual should be contacted and offered the opportunity to make a comment before such things are published. But YouTube is the Wild West of true crime reporting, and apparently people can say whatever they want, even if it isn't true, without sourcing or fact-checking. And apparently people will believe everything they hear from a creator that agrees with what they want to hear, rather than questioning if it's true or not. The main claim from Summer seems to be that I'm a liar, which is an old trope some of my family members like to drag out when the truth causes them to confront an unpleasant reality. And while my cousin Adam was more broad in his claim that 99% of what I say is not true, Summer got quite specific with her defamatory and libelous accusations. I won't address all of what she said because, frankly, it's not worth my breath, but I will make you an invitation. Before I had any content on my YouTube channel, before I started my podcast, I wrote a book about my experiences healing from trauma and talking about the SA I experienced for 4 years as a child. It's called I Walked Through Fire to Get Here. During 2023, I did dozens of interviews on other people's podcasts talking about my experiences and my healing. So my invitation is this. Please invite whatever psychologist or behavioral expert or liar exposer you want to review all of my past interviews and make an assessment about whether or not they think I'm lying about any of it. I am happy to hear the results. If there is proof out there that I've lied about something, I would love to see it. Also, again, please ask the question, who benefits if I'm lying? Certainly the people who look bad would like to discredit me because then they wouldn't look so bad. Let me point out too, that just because you and I disagree about something or see things from a different point of view does not mean that I'm lying, especially when I'm talking about my own experiences. There's a difference between deliberate deception and opposing viewpoints. For example, some people say it wasn't stalking. I say that the behavior met the legal definition of stalking. If they say it wasn't stalking, it doesn't mean they're lying. It just means they haven't researched the law in this particular case. Ignorance is not the same as dishonesty. Finally, I want to ask for some grace and some common sense. If you hear or see something that seems out of character for what you know about me, please do me the courtesy of allowing me to address it before you decide what is true and what is not. The worst part about this particular situation is that I know there are thousands of people who have chosen sides with only partial information because what we're being told out here in the social media world isn't even half of the story. I wish that we lived in a culture where there was more civil discourse, but we don't. There isn't even civil discourse among friends, apparently. Nothing in this entire case has made me sadder than losing some of my faith in humanity. Watching this drama play out has reminded me that people in general prefer to be told a kind lie rather than face a hard truth. They prefer to believe the worst about someone in the spotlight because it makes them feel better about themselves. My channel has always been a place for people who recognize the humanity and beauty in each other, despite our differences. I worked very hard to cultivate a space where we could disagree with kindness and intention rather than hate and dismissal. But this space will continue to be one where I will speak the truth regardless of the personal consequences. I would rather have 0 subscribers and be true to myself than to have a space where I feel like I have to tiptoe around people who are too fragile to hear the truth. If speaking the truth matters to you, regardless of the consequences, and if you want to be in a space where you can be true to yourself and have kind and respectful conversations, even when we disagree, if that sounds like a space you'd like to be in, welcome. And if not, I wish you the best wherever you go. Here's looking forward